And yet, I'm not seeing anybody asking, where is our haven? Where is our haven? How do we get to our haven? That was the promise. That's what we all bought. Our grandparents who emigrated from their respective nations all over the world, that's what they hoped for, only to find their grandkids caught in never-ending slaughter. Is this problem fixable? What's the vision here exactly? Someone should have broken the news to these catastrophic failures that a pragmatic goal cannot be achieved in dogmatic fashion. This is where the charming Netanyahu comes in. Can't really have a monologue about Israel without bringing him into the mix. His vision for Israel and his future can be summarized in 3 syllables. Peace through strength. His idea essentially revolves around building wealth that will eventually alleviate terrorism. He wants to make Israel so strong that failing Arab nations will one day be forced to recognize it as a valuable ally to benefit themselves, work their self-interest. That's the most coherent vision I've ever heard for the sustainability of modern Israel. And the Abraham Accords have proven that's realistic. There are more Arab countries collaborating with Israel today than any other point in history. And basically, that vision sits at the crossroads of religion and economics. You can think of it like the engine and the wheel. Religion is the motive that determines what the Arab world is going to focus their efforts on, or the wheel. And economics are the engine, which is the enabler that permits them to carry out their wishes. He wants to empower the sane actors in our neighboring countries, increase the number of people who oppose the jihad, and have them combat the terrorists for their own well-being. It could work very effectively, especially given that as a country grows richer, its populace tends to turn atheist. I'm not saying that's necessary, but last time I checked, there's no such thing as the atheist jihad. But there's over 100 million Muslims on the borders of Israel alone. If you include Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, you get to 350 million. We're less than 10. Most of them don't even want to work with us. Even with the global switch to electric vehicles, you can bet oil-based economies will not run out of gas money anytime soon and be forced to adapt Western industries. Not even in some magical world where the climate agenda isn't viewed as a catastrophization technique meant to fearmonger its way to the imposition of a globalist dictatorship. The value of gas won't be suffering a disruptive blow until at least the 22nd century. So far, it's only been increasing. So how exactly is it that this pathway is going to lead to tolerable foreign relations? Say we manage to eliminate 90% of the jihad through our tiny, lonely bastion. Hypothetically. It's never going to happen, but hypothetically. There's now a rational Muslim/atheist supermajority in most of our neighboring countries. They're imprisoning any terrorist or terrorist supporter in their countries without supervision. Yay, dreamland. Every weapon within their borders is internally surveilled to ensure as few of the ones who remain are armed. So although they may still exist, most of them are ineffectual. Except we've seen what less than 3,000 of them can do with AK-47s and paragliders. The numbers don't add up, folks. Let me ask you something else. What happens when they stop being what we derogatorily refer to as Arab? What happens when they get rich and build technological capabilities without us? Strengthen their militaries, engage in advanced cyber warfare. What happens when they go nuclear? The only reason we've won all the wars thus far is because their armies were terrible and we received heavy support. Unfortunately, forward-looking though this vision is, it's not enough. We can't do this alone. If things remain the way they are, we will fail with certainty. what happens until then? Are we going to babysit them and sacrifice innocent civilians at the altar of Zion for the next 2,000 years? Because I assure you, by making ourselves dependent on the success of the Arab world indefinitely, that altar is going to keep shedding rivers of Jewish blood exclusively for the foreseeable future. Palestine alone, with its measly, poverty-stricken populace, will be a constant struggle here. And it's not like the war ends there. There's no need to get specific. Everyone knows what we're dealing with. We're surrounded by evil. Even if it got down to 0.1%, that's still at least 350,000 people who are worse than the Nazis, up there with the very worst people to ever walk the earth. So we just keep fighting them, do we? We try to predict the next way they'll hit us. Every 5 years or so, they succeed. They hide behind civilians. We bomb the fuck out of them like any country would. They ensure the survivors of the next generation will be raised on horror stories and be motivated to replace them as the next jihadist militia. You can occupy them as much as you're able to, but the militants are not the problem. Their immortality is fueled by death, and they keep inviting it. Even if we snapped our fingers and eradicated every militant on the planet, what then? Is it fuzzy peaches and sunshine for the rest of human time? No! It's the fanaticism that's the problem. And for as long as it persists, the jihadist hydra will keep spawning new heads. So what are we going to do? Go full-blown Minority Report and convict people for crimes that haven't yet been committed? Why don't we wait for Neuralink and hope to implant chips in every human's brain that'll double the average IQ and eliminate fanaticism? That'll only take 200 years. I know. We can conquer every territory that teaches the Quran and supervise the pedagogy. Shame about word of mouth, though. Maybe we can install cameras in every dark room in the world and intercept every discussion that fits the criteria for Islamic extremism using AI. Ooh. Guys, we're betting on a limp horse here. All this goes to show is what a dreadful policy it was to let their problems become ours in the first place. The only answer is genocide, and that's obviously out of the question. The sad reality is, Israel, in its current form, has an expiration date. We're on the clock, and it's only a matter of time until something truly drastic happens here. This is not sustainable. This is not the land of milk and honey. The colors are similar, but instead of honey, it's sand. And instead of milk, it's bones. It's the land of sand and bone, death and horror, zeal and dogma. And I get there are certain people who'd rather stay simply because this is where they grew up and it's what they're familiar with, but even they should be ready to admit it's objectively inferior. The sooner we realize there's nothing special about this place, the sooner we'll get to a sustainable peace. The only reason we need to stay here as of today is sunk costs. It's a terrible piece of land, but we invested too much into it. You can't give it up at this point in time. Not only is this place not holy, it is cursed. Being here is not a gift, it is a burden, one that we must carry reluctantly until better times come. When people talk about this place, I want to hear reluctance. They need to be tired, not happy. If you see a shred of lust as if they're talking about some gem, you can point to that person and understand their attitude is the root cause of immeasurable suffering. Call them out on it, Jewish, Christian, or Muslim alike. Recite all the reasons why their infatuation is unfounded and expose them as heralds of war. Understand one thing. This is the purpose of what I'm saying here. This would all be resolved, but for the lust in your voice. That's a direct quote from my fantasy series. Maybe too flowery for the occasion, but it fits in perfectly. Etch that into memory. And every time you see people who are willing to kill and die for any reason that's not related exclusively to the well-being of people, recall that. This would all be resolved, but for the lust in your voice. Kill that lust. Stop glorifying this place, because you're too much of a coward to admit the facts. This applies to both sides. Enough with the bias. Enough with the lies. Enough with the justifications. Be honest. This place sucks, and the people who love it are stupid. Living in Israel should not be a desire, but a duty. And from that mindset, we might actually be able to work together. And this is where the likes of Yosef Haddad and Nathaniel Buzalij and all the explainers come in. I mean, God bless them. I hold nothing against them, but what are you doing? Yes, the Palestinians never had a national consciousness or collective culture. They weren't even here until the Arab conquest of the Levant under the Rashidun Caliphate. But who cares? Yes, Palestine is the Roman name for Israel. It isn't mentioned in the Quran once, and it's mentioned 1 trillion times in the Torah. But who cares? The Jews have been here for 2,000 years before Muhammad was even born. Fantastic. We have the best claim to the land, and we're well within our rights to exercise that claim. But who cares? What sort of dimwit do you have to be to debate principles of ownership over the desirability of the thing? You're trifling. No, I was here first, and yes, but you didn't do anything with it. And this guy kicked us out, and that guy kicked him out, and then we came back, and we were here the longest, and he bombed a hospital, and he baked a baby. Who cares? You're having the wrong debate. You're playing tug of war when you should be playing hot potato. Adults ought to know justice can't be found in war. Satisfaction least of all. We shouldn't be working to give people what they want. We shouldn't even be working to give people what they deserve. That is infantile. What we should do is work towards getting people what's good for them and everyone else. Winning isn't a victory here. Whoever wins this land is the loser. Oh no, you lose. What do you lose? A stick of dynamite with a burning fuse. We shouldn't be fighting to keep it. We should be fighting to leave it. By all rights, we should never have even come here. We're the misfits, and now millions of lives are at stake, so we don't have a choice. We deserve better. And the truth is, to get better, we need help. And that help is not going to come by playing tug of war over a slab of dirt. But who's out there right now actually offering solutions to the problem? Is all we can do just explaining and judging and taking sides? How does that end? Well, I can tell you this much. It doesn't end with us draining the swamps and the swamps draining us back in the form of a shot-up rave. You're so confident. So confident. So confident in your ability to stand fast that you're decorating walls as they're caving in on you because the empire that allowed you to stand fast is in decline. So confident you don't even see it.